Hey everyone, and welcome to our second episode in the new year of In the Spotlight, where we shine a massive light on entrepreneurs, SMEs, and innovators. I'm Maxine Crow, your host, and I am absolutely ecstatic, really excited to be joined by Alex Hughes, chairman of Inspire2Ignite. So there's a little backstory here before I introduce Alex and he talks. There's a lady called, shout out to Sarah Stones. We met at a speaker award last year, and she mentioned that Inspire2Ignite were launching your hub in Milton Keynes. Which is my local town, one of my local towns. And she said, "Oh, it'd be great for you to go along and support them." And honestly, Alex, I have to say, from the moment I stepped through that door and met the young entrepreneurs, and we'll learn more about your great work that you're doing. That was it. I was hooked, and I was thinking, right, how do we get this message out across the country, across just anywhere, and get the support that you need? So, with that said, I am absolutely honoured and delighted that you've been able to. We've got this spotlight special time for you. So, Alex, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for all your support as well, both on the day for that event, but since you've been a wonderful advocate, connecting us and doing the great work you do. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So for the audience, let's just start with an introduction to yourself, and then let's just talk about where the idea came from for Inspire2Ignite.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Alex, I usually introduce myself as I'm the 35-year-old granddad, which usually gets the brain whirring around trying to calculate how that works. But essentially, so it started when I was 14, when I became a father at that age.
Wow.
And when you're 14, you can't legally be a father, and you can't legally work. So that's kind of my first kind of introduction to this as a subject. So young people being neat, that was me. I was not in education, employment, or training. Very lost. A very quick start to life, to say the least. And but over time, after a lot of chaos, I found my way through life, and over the last 10 years, I'm now, as I say, 35. Over the last 10 years, I've been building businesses. I've been obsessed with entrepreneurship and understanding the market and serving our community. Building businesses that we've employed over 150 people in those businesses. And a few years ago, I went to a conference, 2019 it would have been, with our friends over at Former Future, their annual conference. And I basically just stood up and said, look, I'm really passionate about this subject. I really want to help young people, help my younger self. I'm in a position whereby I can probably do that now. I'm really open to a collaboration if anyone's listening and wants to collaborate. And a lovely lady called Michelle Lord, who was working for Cambridge City Council at the time, said, actually, we've got this project going on, whereby we're looking for partners to support kind of unconventional routes into industry. And I see entrepreneurship as a discipline, a way of life, a mindset. And I personally believe that starting a business is a wonderful journey, challenging, very challenging, anyone who's been
Yes,
down
it
that
is.
route. But it's almost such a powerful tool for self-development. So we designed a program around starting a business, but with self-development in mind. So that was the kind of the seed for the idea for the business.
Yeah.
And then over time, I'd met a wonderful man called Sam Squire, who couldn't be here today because he's out doing the amazing work that that we advocate for. And he was, playing for. He was Cambridge United, professional footballer from very young age, and at 19 didn't get his second contract. And he happened to be walking past a cafe in the town where we live in St Neots. I was sat in there with my partner, and he doorstopped me and just said, "Oh, I've seen you on Instagram, Alex. I see you help people. I'm not sure what I want to do with my life." I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to be a life coach." And I laughed at him because I wasn't quite aware of coaching as I am now. I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
you're 19-year-old. What are you going to teach someone about life?" And he used that as fuel to prove me wrong, if you like. So he said to me, "I'll be back," and I said, "I'll support you. I'll mentor you. I'm here for you. There'll be an opportunity in the future, but do it." So fast forward to 2022, we realised there was a much bigger need than just doing these small programs, and we registered a community interest company. Inspire2Ignite was the brand, and I rang Sam. I said, "Hey, how would you like to be a full-time life coach?" And now he's the CEO. So, yeah, it's a bit of a snapshot into kind of how we got to the start point, and where we are today. We're just over a year old. We've engaged with just under 4,000 16 to 24-year-olds across Cambridgeshire, Peterborough, and Milton Keynes, which we call our Curious Triangle. And we're advocating for youth empowerment across the board, and whether that be they go into employment through some of our amazing sponsors, people like Hill Group and Mick George and Bidwells and M&J, and some amazing brands that kind of back us, or they're unemployable like me and they need to go down the entrepreneurial route. We have that for them too.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing initiative, and just in that short space of time to have changed over 4,000 lives. And there's probably more, because I know Sam's probably doing a couple of workshops today. So there's another people that you can add on. But what struck me at that Milton Keynes launch was just the energy and the passion that these young entrepreneurs had at such a young age. I mean, if I look back at my 18-year-old self, I was working in a factory. I was that traditional, okay, you've left school, didn't get to full-time college, part-time college, then you have to get a job and earn an income. And that back then, all those years ago, that's basically what the mentality was. So just to see that shift in tradition is really refreshing. And I have to confess, my daughter is now 18, and I had found myself having this conversation saying, "Oh, you finished your A levels, and yes, I know that you've got your gap year for university, but what are you going to do in that gap year? You're going to need to go get." And I had to stop myself in my tracks, because I was thinking, "Hang on a minute, I sound like my other councils back when I was there." I go, "No, this is wrong." And then I thought of you guys, and I actually brought her along. I don't know if you remember, but I brought her along to the event.
I remember well.
Yeah, and I just thought, no, that the thinking has to shift, and just talk about what are the challenges around that traditional thinking, because being the age range that they are, you still have some of it's parental permission and that input. So do you want to just talk around how you meet those challenges?
I'd say the biggest challenge. I would say they are ultimately, this is a cultural issue. This is a societal expectations are the biggest barriers that we have. And actually, when you speak to people generally, I'm 35 and I have no idea what I want to do when I get older, right? So we're quite comfortable with that as a conversation when it's us and we're whatever age we are, and but then at that young age, all this pressure is just applied, and it's insane, and so it's really about showing progress. And I think that for us, it's a case of some people need time, and there are circumstances around some of these young people's lives that we have to take into account. Can you imagine being great, we remember being 18, but you don't remember being 18 and having a COVID lockdown for a period of your education. We work with some young people that went into secondary school in year 7 and then went back into secondary school in year 10 because of COVID and everything else. So there's so much complexity around the circumstances. You have to take that into consideration. I think everyone should be taking that into consideration. And then the other side of it is the language. So something that we're really a big advocate for is changing the language around careers and skills. We don't like the words, quite frankly. And I do think career sounds so finite. When you say, "Oh, well, what are you going to do for a career?" Well, I have no idea. I haven't got a clue what's out there. What are my options? So we try to bring the conversation back to the self and focus on who rather than what.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a prime example. As one of the activities that we do is really popular with schools. We run what we call Curious Corners. So careers fairs, not a massive fan, not going to lie. A lot of boring banners, shepherding young people through these like halls where they've never engaged with an employer before. It's just very intimidating. It's you grab the merch, go back.
Traditional.
Yeah, it's so traditional, and but there's an opportunity where there's lots of young people. So we do go to careers fairs, but we have what we call a curious corner, and in that curious corner, we ban the word careers, we ban the word skills, and we ban boring banners. Instead, we have, like you well described, as energy. Our role is to create a safe space for young people to have meaningful conversations, to learn about themselves. So that's where we have people like Sarah Stones comes along, some of our champions, some of our employers, and instead of asking what do you want to do when you're older, we ask who do you want to become. And that's a much more powerful question that enables them to have a different conversation. And then off the back of that, through the coaching and through various different activities like culture beanbags, and we've got DJ in there, and there's all sorts going on, they end up with a little cue card because we want them to engage with employers. We want them to engage with employers, we want them to engage with colleges, but we want them to ask better questions. So instead, we arm them with a cue card that says, hey, my name's Alex. These are my core values. And how are you as a culture going to help me develop as a human? And that's the sort of things that we're doing to try to challenge that status quo. But it's a lot. It's a hard slog. And as a CIC, as a non-profit, funding that kind of work is a complex beast to navigate.
Yeah, I hear you. I really do, and it starts with the schools and the colleges and the trying to change that. I mean, we're looking at a system that's been here for centuries, and yes, we're not going to change it, but we can definitely make a dent in how future generations see their lives. The other added complexity I was thinking when you were explaining about the challenges was the if we look back in our I'll say our day. I'm going to put us in the similar bracket because it's a similar kind of timeline. The technology and the we didn't have mobile phones at school. We didn't have computers. Well, actually, maybe the Amstrads were around, but do you know what I mean? So that added pressure. It's not just about okay, what you want to do when you're older. Who do you want to become? It is about well, actually, there's all this other added pressure as well because of the social through media that is generated. So how do you actually combat um the technology side and all of that noise that's coming in for these young entrepreneurs wannabe I say wannabe entrepreneurs, but they don't actually know that when they actually get to you, I'd imagine. But yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I find, generally in society, we have issues with the things we don't talk about. Whether that be mental health, whether we talk about social media, sex, money, all of the uncomfortable conversations are the bits where the that need to be addressed. So, firstly, it's about acknowledging it and meeting them. And I would not. I can tell you now, I would not want to be a 15-year-old girl right now. With all of the social, like you say, the pressure, the social media, it's just constant barrage, the comparing, it's tough,
Tough.
and I do think though that they're aware of that, and there's quite a lot of awareness that's in the market around kind of safety online, and people are quite aware that filters exist and everyone's showing their best self, but. Nonetheless, it's a challenge. We try to leverage it as an opportunity to meet them where they are. So, we will create content that they relate to, and they'll naturally kind of self-select into us. Most of our communities run through Discord, which is a platform that they're very used to engaging with.
Mm.
So we've embraced it, if you like, because you have to. It's not going anywhere. So it's about embracing that it exists, meeting them where they are, and getting their experiences. In fact, it's very interesting. You see, yesterday I do one day a week where I'm still on the ground working with young people because I like to stay grounded and
Yeah.
in understanding. And I had a group of 15-year-olds yesterday, and I asked the questions like, "What social media platforms do you utilize? Like, which, your top three?" And actually, they're all pretty similar. Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube. None
Yeah.
of it, interestingly, none of them said TikTok. And I asked that question about TikTok, and I said, well, why is it none of you said TikTok? And two of them actually said, I've deleted the app because
Oh,
I became addicted to it. So they've got that consciousness around the technology and what it's doing to them. They're quite
yeah.
aware. Um, but the main thing is that they want privacy. They want to be able to. I think Snapchat's quite a good one for them because it's quite a private platform. It's very much about their community and their friends and how they communicate. Basically, wherever parents are, they're not, right? So when we were younger and we used to organise those parties and raves and stuff when we were young, you wouldn't post it on Facebook, would you? Because
No.
that's where your parents are. So it's just understanding it, acknowledging it, meeting them where they are, which allows you to have healthy conversations about it and make it part of the conversation rather than it combating it, because you'll lose if you try to combat it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I just remember when my daughter was around even 8 or 9, and I had to give her a mobile phone because of where we live, and she had to catch a bus to the school that she was going to. And even then, the awareness of such a young age. But would you, in terms of young entrepreneurs, would you ever in the future look at the next bracket, so that a younger age range, because like you said, at 14 you became a father. So what about the ones that are not currently within that 18 to 24?
So we're looking at it. There's a big demand for entrepreneurship being taught in a meaningful way to younger age groups. There's also a massive rise in things like home education. That there's quite a craving for us to do something. So we do have currently actually a waiting list on Curious Entrepreneurs for our first private offering, which is a global offering,
Mm,
which is online support for 12 to 17-year-olds through parental consent. So we've got some kind of safeguarding set up within our platform. So it is something that is part of the offering and what we're developing, but the demand on where Sam wants to take the business and where he wants to go. So I stepped down as CEO back in September.
yeah.
I've now moved into a chair position, and Sam is very keen to work on developing the work that we're doing with alternative provision, and those that we see as most in need of what we can do. Because entrepreneurship is our culture. It's
Hmm.
I believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. It's just creativity and curiosity, and that is entrepreneurship. So we should all have that within us. But ultimately, not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur. So it's about just taking that holistic view on the human, and finding whatever works for them. Being entrepreneurial about the way that you approach your life is important, I think, for everyone, especially in a changing world like we're in now. I would argue it's life skills, not career. And I've always said that. Starting a business, and you'll appreciate this,
Mm.
starting a business is not a professional choice. It's a
No.
personal choice. It's a personal commitment. There's more demand on your mindset, on your environment, on your network than there is on your technical ability to build a business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the small part of it. So when you talk about the fostering that the culture of curiosity. So for any of the audience that haven't heard about Inspired to Ignite, do you want to just walk through sort of the mission, the ethos, and what that actually means?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my argument is simple. When we're all born curious, right? We literally come out of the womb and we're like, whoa, ding, what's this? And you watch
Lights.
your early years. Yeah, I've got a 1.5-year-old now, and watching him and every day he's learning. He's constantly just grabbing things and figuring things out and breaking things and pulling it apart and all pointing at things. And actually, there's a wonderful TED talk. If you haven't seen it, then anyone who's watching, please do. Sir Ken Robinson, one of my favorite TED talks ever. How do schools kill creativity? It's one of the most watched TED talks ever, and he talks about how through the education system, when you're young, it teaches your whole body. Right up to primary age, you're taught your whole body, and as you get older, the education moves further up the body to the head and then to one side. And creativity is lost in all of that. And actually, it becomes much more about academic performance than it does about intelligence and developing the whole self. So curiosity being baked into our ethos is really key, which is why when you come to our events, you feel like you feel, because we know how important it is to get everyone back to a human level where we can be curious, we can be creative, and that's about creating psychological safety and, well, wonderful agenda and speakers and everything else that comes with running these things. So, yeah, our ethos is that we're not a training company. We are not an educational institution. We're not here to teach you anything. In fact, when young people start our programs, they all get a pad, a workbook, and I say to them, right, I want everyone open at page 18 of the book. And they all open the book and they roll their eyes and look at me, and then it's blank. I say, yeah, welcome to business. We're all winging it. I don't have any answers. We only have questions. So it's about, so our kind of mission, our vision is to be able to create safe spaces for people to be curious and ask great questions. That is the whole of what we do. And actually, that's what the market needs. There is no shortage, absolutely no shortage of support to get skills. You can get fantastic programs all throughout the market about, especially if you're under the age of 24. There's loads of amazing ways into industry. There are people that mentor. There's wonderful support everywhere, but no one's doing the engagement bit. Everyone forgot to do the engagement bit. So our role, we're like the hop, if you like. So we go out, we do the outreach. We're in youth hostels. We're in through sports. We're in schools. We're on social media, and we're about allowing, like a magnet. Young people are coming in, and then once they come in, Sam then has a framework, which is the human scorecard. So he spends that time with that young person where they kind of tell them about they're like a wheel of life, what's important to us, how do they score it, and that allows us to understand the human.
Yeah.
My role within the organisation is looking much more on the pathways in the future around corporates and colleges and all the corporate partners to say, okay, cool, this is what we know about the human, and we know a lot about young people, and we've got some data. How can we do the same with the business to understand your culture? So what are the behaviours and the values and the interests of the human? Well, why don't we look at the behaviours and values and the interests of the humans that are doing well in your culture? Because that way you've got a human and culture mix.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way we operate. The next big step for us is to look at physical space. To look at our own, potentially getting our own academy, our own safe space that we can really co-design and build into something that's made for and with young people, and that's absolutely key in everything we do.
Yeah. So do you feel, because I know you're in 3 regions at the moment, so thanks for explaining that, because that's really important, especially for anyone that's listening back afterwards to the recording. It's good to learn the mission and the vision. So at the moment you're in, correct me, three areas. So St Neots, Cambridge, Peterborough, and Milton Keynes. MK. Are the plans? What are the plans for expanding out, and also does it go beyond the UK as well?
That's a great question. So, we at the moment, St Neots is in the heart of that triangle, right? So it's where we live. It just so happens to be the centre of the entrepreneurial universe, as a way I like to pitch it. And Cambridge, Milton Keynes, and Peterborough are interesting places because of the growth within the area. There is huge deprivation gap within Cambridge. Huge, the whole town versus gown, it's quite the challenge. Milton Keynes has been described to us as having the kind of deprivation of some parts of the north and the crime rate of London, and then you've got Peterborough, which it has quite a lot of deprivation there. So for us, it's close enough for us to build infrastructure that sits around us. The vision is to be a national endeavour. We want to make sure that we're accessible to as many people in the UK. There's an infinite strategy in what we're trying to achieve here. I do think there's global products. You've heard some of the young people that speak, that spread their message. Just they need a global stage. So something, and I can't give away too much, but Sam is working on something at the moment whereby if we get to a point where we've got this academy come September, which is the current track,
Yeah.
every morning we will cook together and we will eat together as a community, the young people. But we're also thinking about having something whereby we can be broadcasting daily from the academy with some of the young people's stories that can then start to echo out to the world, which will inevitably attract. That's how we got to Milton Keynes. I put a
Yeah.
poll up. I literally put a poll up on LinkedIn to say where should we go next, and I think Milton Keynes scored like 8% or something. And then I was just getting a barrage from people like Christian from MKU and some other people within Milton Keynes saying, "Hey, Alex, we need you over here," and that's how we got there. So
Yeah.
for us, we want to be pulled to where we wanted. We're not trying to force anything. It's about organic growth and co-creating with the young people, and that's key to our strategy, and it's absolutely essential to Sam's values and his philosophy.
Yeah. I'm just going to touch on a bit of a sensitive subject now. So, what about kids that a bit lost? They have, so my daughter has anxiety. Which I do have permission to actually discuss when I talk about her, and we know that the mental health amongst particularly that 18 to 24-year-old bracket is, I mean, it's just absolutely it's terrible. I mean, it is a really sensitive subject. As you can tell, I'm just getting a bit emotional about it because there's some personal experiences with
You take your time.
friends and kids, and how can Inspire2Ignite collaborate with like the likes of chat chums, organizations that, and it is hard for them. I'm not gonna. I know that it's really tough out there with social care as well. Is there a bigger strategy around Inspire2Ignite to just, because what you do is really, really special, and I've seen the lives of even those few entrepreneurs that we met. I've seen how their lives have changed and for the better. Is that in the strategy at all? Because honestly, there's just so many young adults out there that need you. Sorry,
Yeah,
I've
and
just
no, and firstly, I'm sorry that your daughter's going through that, and that's tough
it wasn't actually
for.
my
Oh, sorry.
daughter has anxiety, but it's
Oh,
a couple of
someone
very
else in mind.
close family
Someone in
friends.
mind. Sorry. Well,
Mm,
either way,
mm,
like and therein lies, just you explaining that when someone in your community is down, everyone feels that, and I think what we've done well in the last 10 years as a society is raise a lot of awareness around mental health, and there's been tremendous work done, amazing in the way that we as a country, I think we've done amazing things in raising awareness around mental health, and I'm our staff mental health first aid trained. Like I've been raising money for CPSL Mind for a few years now, with various different things. I get involved in mental health charities that I support, and that's great. I'm a big believer that if you truly want to solve a problem, you need to make it a community problem. No one can resolve this on their own. We have to find ways to resolve things as a community. I had a very traumatic experience last year as a family. Someone close to, and a trigger warning around some of these subjects as well to anyone who's listening. Like if you are, if any of this is triggering, then please do reach out for support and help. But we had someone in my family tried to take their own life, and it was horrific, and I became an unpaid carer for a few months of last year, and
yeah,
experienced it firsthand, and the support wasn't there, quite frankly. I went to the hospital, pick him up, and it was a consultant that day because I think they had strikes on. There was a consultant there and said, well,
yeah,
he's not showing the signs that he's going to do that again, so it sounds like you're going to look after him and sign him out, and away you go. And I'm having to have that conversation every morning to say,
yeah,
hey, how are you feeling? Scale of 1 to 10. Are you going to try to hurt yourself today? And you're doing that every single day, and it's so challenging, and it's
Yeah.
such a complex beast. Um, what are we? What? How do I answer your question in a meaningful way? How do
There
I
might
answer?
not be an answer, to be honest. It might just be something. I, I didn't expect to go down this road, to be honest with you, and then it's just
Yeah. No, it's
it's
important. It's an important subject, and it's a big part of everything because actually, the barriers that people are facing to get their oxygen mask on, whether it's financially or otherwise. I can't tell you the volume of young people that actually takes a year before we can do anything with them around entrepreneurship or work or anything like that, because
yeah,
they might be in the care system, and actually, they're trapped because of. And you heard Michael's story at
yeah,
the event. That guy pays £380 a week for a bloody room the size of this pod I'm in. There's no point in going to try and work, and then what does that do to drag them down? So yeah, I don't know. Is there a strategy for us to try to get? But I think we can't do anything alone. I think we've got to find a better way for CICs and CIOs in the markets of a non-profit world to kind of take more lead. There can
mm,
be a lot more done when it comes to how support is funded. There's nowhere near enough revenue funding for CICs and CIOs to be able to provide that support. There's a lot of tick boxing around the way things are funded.
yeah,
If I said to you, there's only one youth worker in the entire city of Peterborough, and then you wonder why there's no why there's the support's not there, or there's only one social worker for the entirety of the Fens, and you wonder why there's an issue. There's no
yeah,
youth infrastructure. There's no. So I think the best thing we can do is continue down the route of building infrastructure so people can help themselves.
yeah,
Ultimately, that's the key. We don't have it anymore. There's no infrastructure. I'm sat in today something that we built over here in Sydney. It's called the Citizen Hub,
yeah,
and it's a wonderful space. And we've got a 14-year-old who starts next week building a youth hub, pop-up youth hub, which is going to be run by young people for young people.
yeah,
That's the sort of stuff that I think we are capable of doing, is building
yeah,
infrastructure.
yeah, and it's really important that young people understand and know that support is out there, because it can be a lonely place, especially with the barrage of, we've talked about the social media, we've talked about all that noise. It can be quite a lonely place, and having, knowing that you have plans to expand and spread that net and help more young people is really reassuring. And how can, and for people that are listening or going to be watching the recording back, if they're a corporate, what can they do today to make a difference and help you on that journey?
Well, I would always say help your community around you, let alone helping us. If you are a business, for me, I'm very passionate about how do we move businesses from corporate social responsible entities to community consciousness. You know, traditionally in the history of any economy, towns and villages and cities are built on anchor brands. Brands there to drive economic growth.
Yeah,
And for me, we need them to step up. We need the businesses to step up to say, you have a responsibility to make sure that the people that work for you and their families and the people around you where you are geographically based benefit from your existence. I mean, Simon Sinek, who's I'm a big fan,
yeah, same.
he talked a lot about yeah, okay, fine. They're probably let down by, maybe they've been let down by the education system. Maybe they didn't have an ideal upbringing. Maybe the government's against them because they don't vote and the political cycle is around. But ultimately, you as a corporate, you adopted that responsibility when you hired that person. So, firstly, for me, it always starts with them as a brand. What are you doing to promote opportunities for people to grow within your culture, and how does that echo out to the world? And then, what opportunities are you creating for people to join? So, if you were to work with us as a corporate, we would ask you to make sure that you create at least one pathway into your organization that doesn't require formal qualification. So that's a really simple thing that you can do to recruit based purely on character and not academic performance. So that is a really simple thing any business can do tomorrow. And I think there is a big movement towards that.
Yeah.
In term, if if the business is not quite aware of the talent pool out there, I mean, let me just put this. Actually, let me just say this: so 800,000 16 to 24-year-olds that are currently not in education, employment, or training in the UK right now. 800,000, right? That's a
Mhm.
lot of people. So please don't tell me there's a skill shortage. There's a labour shortage. They're sat. You won't find them on Facebook. You won't find them on Indeed. They won't. Then they're probably not attending the job centre. You're going to need organisations like ours and other. There are some wonderful youth organisations in the UK. You're going to need to back us to go and do that work because there are no youth workers. There is no youth infrastructure to engage
Yeah.
with them. So you kind of need a. We're the conduit between
Like a bridge.
future talent. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And give me your
That's
money.
you should have said that first, actually. So just moving on to a bit of I want to hear some advice and some wisdom from you. What's the best piece of advice and wisdom that you received as an entrepreneur?
um, best piece. I like that. So I've always seeked it. So one is it's amazing what you can achieve when you don't care who takes the credit. I think that's key when you're building anything that has purpose. You cannot if you rely on feeling needed, wanted, celebrated, and we all do. We all crave that level of recognition. That's it within us. But understanding that you can achieve so much more if you enable other people. Hence why I don't usually do these sort of things. I'm very happy to be here. I love doing
Thank you.
these. Very happy to be here. I you know I tend to promote. I got asked to do a care leavers conference recently, for instance, and I refuse to speak about young people when they're not in a room physically. So I said, "Oh, I'll come, but I want to be interviewed by Michael." And Michael interviewed me, which was quite a
Yeah.
fabulous a moment. So yeah, so there's that. And the other thing that I really love and I stick by is, and excuse my language very briefly, but no one gives a shit, right? And there's two ways you can say that. You can say that and feel sorry for yourself. So, no one, no one cares, whatever else. Or you can say, hey, no one gives a shit, and just crack on. And I think where I left school so early, I didn't have that kind of conditioning. So
Mm.
I barely have any filter. I just, it gets me in all sorts of trouble, but I get to meet wonderful people, and I think that's great. So yeah, so I think that's probably the best advice I've had that no one really cares, so crack on anyway, and make sure that you're building meaningful partners with other people that can help you reach your mission, whatever that may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. So how do you actually maintain your work-life balance, especially with the demands of? I mean, I'm sure this is probably Inspire is probably not your only business. How do you do that? And you've got your young son now as well.
It's a great question, and I'm going to give you a controversial response.
Okay.
I don't believe in work-life balance when it comes to entrepreneurial life. I believe in work-life blend, and
Good
I
one.
think that works really nicely for me because um, you know when you become an entrepreneur, when you become self-employed, and I've been in that position for 10 years now. You know, businesses are built on Sunday. And the reason why that is because no one else is working that day. So I actually almost work a Dubai timetable because on a Sunday I can plan, I can strategize, I can line up all my comms to go out on Monday at 9 o'clock, and then I can just go into the week and feel it. So that's for me what works for me.
Yeah.
I want to. I don't get into work till 10, half 10 most days, or like into physical work in
Yeah.
town, because I've got a 1-year-old and I quite enjoy the morning where we can play around and have a good time. So that's what works for me. Um, so that's one thing. The second thing, various different. I have a good self-awareness
Hmm.
around how I'm feeling. I know when I'm doing too much. I'm a binger, right? So I'm
Yeah.
all in or I'm all out. I'm not. I can't do or switch the phone off at 5 or whatever. But what I can do is I can binge break as well. So Christine and I have a wonderful habit. At least once a year, we do a digital detox. So we go
Mhm.
away, we book somewhere, middle of nowhere, usually in a cabin somewhere. We take our dog, and now our 1-year-old, and the phone stays at home. I've got a JOMO phone, a joy of missing out
Homo.
phone.
What's that?
It's a Nokia 3310. It has no social media, no internet. It's got an FM radio on it and 28 days
Wow.
battery life. So a few key contacts have got that phone number, but complete digital detox that allows me to, and Christine and I, to have honest, open conversations about how our life is changing and what do we need to adjust in it in the future, and you build strategies around it that works. And nothing's ideal.
Mm.
A pandemic might happen, or inflation goes mad, or there's an energy crisis, or and you can't
Yeah.
control everything. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend this life to many people. It's a personal commitment, as I say, which is why only 1-2% of people are entrepreneurs.
Mm. I love the work life blends. I can see that being a new addition to the English dictionary.
I imagine someone else probably heard it somewhere. I don't know, but it's something that I've kind of adopted into my. I just don't. I struggle with this. The concept of balance is a moving thing. So I personally think work life balance was probably designed by someone selling something to HR professionals. I imagine. I
Mm.
don't know.
Well, I can relate to balance, but only on a, when you talked earlier um about the Ignite being about the self and not that career. And I can relate to balance, but only intrinsically, because I have this little saying, all order is restored, because you've got, like you've just explained your routine. When with my routine, there's certain things that if they don't happen, you do internally. It's almost like, oh, but it's that they call it out of sorts. Um,
Yeah.
so that's for me, that out of sorts feeling, and that could be, okay, if I'm doing too much over here, but not then enough on the family, or the self care and things like that. So I get the balance piece, but I like blends. I like blend better.
I think balance is a wonderful north star, and I think we all have that as a
Mm,
and I would love to. I'm often battling with myself internally about the need for order, the need for routine, the need for how my life would be very different if that happened. But for the stage of life I'm in now, I need to blend it all in, because otherwise
yeah,
it just won't work. We won't make
yeah.
things happen.
And being very very self-aware, I think it comes with age and experience, that self-awareness. And sometimes it becomes ignorance because you just want to not listen to that inner voice. Or
Yeah,
you know what I mean with that, or you tune into it, and that's how it helps you to become more of your purpose and your passion. And of course, that energy that you're able to create and generate becomes because of what you, because you accept this is me, and that's
exactly,
it. There's no
exactly.
other, there's nothing else to say.
And imagine if imagine if that was part of the curriculum. Imagine
Oh,
if, and this is where I really struggle with the constant battle of having to pick up the pieces with what we're doing, is if we would just have a conversation at younger ages about vision and purpose and understanding of oneself, and trying to get some kind of measure of who you are beyond your academic performance,
yeah,
will allow us to have those conversations in a normal way later. It shouldn't be a surprise when we say, you know, well, you're clearly out of balance. And you
yeah,
can see it in each other, right? You
yeah,
can see, and I know, and as I said earlier, my Sam is like superhuman, right? This guy is, he's a gym every night. He's out delivering, world-changing support to young people. He's on stage the next day. But he's 23 years old.
This is the point.
Right, I'm not. I'm
It's
35.
23.
I've got all these grey hairs, look, right? They're coming through here. I'm a granddad. I feel like I'm 50. So I'm aware of that, and I'm very aware of where I am in a cycle. And I've got this year a plan. I'm stepping down as the chair of a charity that I've been part of for the last couple of years in May, which is always the plan. I'm creating space in my life to change the ingredients to then blend it up in a different way, and that's fine. That's what
Yeah.
life's all about. That's the beauty of life. You can keep redesigning in the way that it operates for you.
You know something that you've touched on something quite important there, especially just as adults, where you keep adding and adding and adding and adding, and then there's that sense of the overwhelm because actually you forgot to take out what's not serving you anymore. Can you imagine what it's like for young people to then have all this adding, 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 but they haven't even learned how to subtract the things that they don't even realize are not actually serving their purpose. So it's quite an interesting psychology that goes on there, I think.
Oh, it's fascinating. I geek out on this stuff. I obsess over it. Quite frankly, it's a good. You have to look at and appreciate that the system is designed for 30% of young people to fail. Like, it's designed. 30% of young people leave mainstream education every single year with no qualifications at all after all that mandatory education. So it is literally designed by league tables for 30% of them to fail. But that doesn't mean, if you just layered that bit in, that life
Mm.
bit in, the life curriculum part, then everyone would be far better off. And it is bizarre to me. And I tell you now, the reason why is absolutely a central government issue. They've had 17 different ministers for education in the last 30 years. I mean, there's no consistency in strategy. There's no, there's just no, strategic thinking around this. It's quite alarming and sad. The sad reality of where we are as a country. It's very easy to be quite, just go, well, I don't know what we're going to do about it. But I know beacons, micro project deployment over
Mm.
time, connected, becomes a solution when the doors open up for when, I don't know,
Yeah,
new government or whatever's going to happen next.
whatever that's going to look like. Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree with you there. Um, so what can you recommend? What's your favorite book, podcast, or resource that has particularly influenced you? I know you've already mentioned Simon Sinek, and I'm very much a strong advocate as well. Who else?
My favorite podcast by a long shot is My First Million. So
Mm,
Shan Puri and Sam Parr. It's like for entrepreneurs, it's like sugar. It's ideas galore. It's just constantly people coming on to talk about like new ideas, new markets, technology, entrepreneurship at its core. Like, so My First Million's like one that I watch and advocate for a lot. Another person, which would be an obvious one to a lot of people, would be Stephen Bartlett. But I've been following
mm,
Stephen Bartlett since he was recording his podcast in his closet when he was building his business. I'm not actually, controversially, I don't listen to all of his podcasts anymore because they're not quite as CEO centric and entrepreneurship centric. They're interesting,
yeah,
but for entrepreneurs, they're not. It's not so close to entrepreneurship
yeah,
anymore. So that's another one. In terms of book, I think I think Daniel Priestley's a wonderful author.
yeah.
I think
I agree.
Oversubscribed is a great book. 24 Assets is another one. Key Person of Influence.
Yes.
I think his content's wonderful, and I'm not just saying that because Score App are one of our sponsors, but I
No,
genuinely,
no.
he's a really good author, and I think a good read for anyone. Simon Sinek we talked about. Stephen Covey's, seven. I think it's Seven Habits of Successful People. I can't remember the name of
Yeah,
the book. That's a good
yeah,
one. Yeah, I mean, there's something that for me, just but when people ask me for recommendation for a book, I always say the same thing. All of them every day. Like, you should be constantly, trying to absorb information. One of my mentors, a great guy called John O'Brien, who's the founder of Anthropy. We had a podcast with him, and he used this great analogy about the library, saying, when you go into Waterstones, or you go into a bookshop or whatever,
Yeah.
you tend to go to where you're like gravitate to, like, I don't know whether it's self-development or history or whatever you do. But he said,
Yeah.
like, go look over on the left side and you'll see an entire bookshelf on medieval poetry. He said there's a reason why so it might not be your bag, but every now and again just go and have a little look at that, and that's again about fostering your curiosity.
Yeah.
Again, it's another one. So yeah, they would be my favorite resources.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Um, have you got any up and coming events, webinars that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we every quarter we have an event called Next Step. So the next one's in March, and this is an opportunity for our community to come together. We'll have a couple of guest entrepreneurs and angel investors will be there for young people to pitch their ideas for a bit of cash to get them started, and maybe some link ups and mentoring. Sam runs a great workshop at that event called The Story of Us, and young people can come and do some kind of storytelling workshops about where they are now, where they want to get to, and how do we build bridges through that. There's
Yeah.
pizza, there's music, there's it's always a good time. So that's a staple. We will be involved in some way with Ideas Fest this year. Francesca from Great British Entrepreneur Awards and Startup Awards have got Ideas Fest, which we're very excited about, mainly because it's one of the best business conferences in the UK, because
Yeah.
it's basically nothing like a business conference, which is why we love it. And interestingly, that's how I met Stephen Bartlett there last year.
Yeah.
I was very sneaky. I really wanted to meet him because one, I'm a fan, but a lot of young people are also a fan in our community. And I remember stood out being front of the stage with Sam, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. I was like, but I've got to meet him. There's no way I'm going to meet him if we're out here. So there was
Yeah.
a lady that was with us at the time, and I said to her, and she looked fabulous. She had this like sequence dress on. She looked like a celebrity. I said, "Would you like to meet Stephen Bartlett?" And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I'm going to go find a way to meet him. Do you fancy coming?" She's like, "Well, how are we going to do that?" I said, "I'll give me your bag. We're gonna walk through security with so much purpose and belief that we belong there, that they're just going to let us through." And they did. And so I spent about 10-15 minutes backstage chatting to Stephen Bartlett and whatnot. Got a little selfie and whatnot. Ideas Fest is always good. I wouldn't advocate for breaking through security. I think they've upgraded their security this year.
Yeah, this is all that Alex Hughes. Oh, in fact, that man with the handbag. Forgetting the woman with the sequin dress that looked absolutely amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Just be me, won't we, get in there? So we've got we kind of embed ourselves into various things happening this year. We are relaunching the Curious Entrepreneurs podcast again this year, so we're looking forward to getting that going. You'll see a lot more of us throughout this year. We've had a bit of a transition
Yeah.
as we've moved. Sam's now into a position where he needs to be hiring a lot more youth workers on the ground and things like that. I've been moving more into a strategic position, so we've been a little bit quiet. But the best thing I could ask people to do is just sign up to a newsletter, because every month you'll get stories of the young people we're working with, events that are coming up, and that's just published on LinkedIn, which is just a natural environment for
Yeah.
us to do that.
Yeah, I'll make sure I share and get people to subscribe. I was going to ask you actually, when you were talking about the different events that you attend, have you heard of the BETT show? BETT show.
I don't
It's
think so.
It's an so I'm actually there next week. It's a educational tech show for 3 days,
Okay.
and that has hundreds of educators, institutions, university, just that target area. So basically, I'm there for three days next week. So if there's any connections and things there that I think I'll literally just have my I've got wearing 3 hats there actually next week, which is going to be quite fun. But it's when it's your passion and purpose, it's just how it is. So I will bear you in mind there if there's
I
any
appreciate that.
useful
No, we
connections as
really
well.
appreciate it. We're always, and anyone who's listening, we're always curious. We're very well, in all the time that we've been doing what we've been doing, we've never said no to a young person. So if there's opportunities to engage with young people, opportunities to influence industry in the way that they are thinking about attracting and developing young people, the chances are the answer is going to be yes. If there's enough notice for the diary, of course, because it's a bit mad.
Yeah, well, I know that I booked you in, and the back end, it was last. Oh my gosh, it was last year, quite a few months ago last year. Yeah, so it soon came round. But I'm really, really happy that we've been able to spend this really valuable time together. Words of wisdom that you would share with our audience, either from your younger self or from your current self. You could choose.
I like to live in the present. So, and I've learned a lot especially this last 2 years. Please, we need to start thinking with a more community conscious mindset. We can influence things in our local area, and I think it's very easy to get bogged down and stressed out by the noise of the world, because it's bloody noisy. I mean, turn the news on. I haven't turned it on for a
Yeah.
while. I imagine it's the same as it was 6 months ago. There's something happened over here. So my word of wisdom is simple. Like, you just wait for the fulfillment that comes from contributing to your community, whether that be volunteering a day down at a food bank, or offering your expertise to your local school, or finding a young person like a Sam to mentor. Who knows, they could be the next CEO of your business, which is exactly what happened with Sam. So my word of wisdom is simple: is start to embrace your community, become more community conscious, and then just watch your life and your fulfillment grow through that enrollment.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. How can our audience connect with you?
So personally, you'll find me if you want to see. I'm a big advocate for building in public. So LinkedIn and Instagram, you can find me on there. Just Alex Hughes, with a classic 3-year-old picture of myself on the front of it. You can't possibly change that now, can I?
Well, you can actually,
Well,
if you wanted to.
yeah. And then in terms of our mission with Inspire2Ignite, website www.inspire2ignite.co.uk. And again, LinkedIn's been a great platform to stay connected to the work we're doing. And if you've been inspired by any of this, then by all means, do reach out through those platforms.
Thank you so much, Alex. This has actually been another episode of In the Spotlight. It's an In the Spotlight special, actually, where we shine a spotlight on entrepreneurs, SMEs, and innovators. Alex, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on, and continue to be an advocate for Inspire2Ignite, and share this message far and wide, and your amazing work far and wide. Thank you so much for today. Thank you.
And bless you. Thank you for all you do. You're a wonderful human being, and you're much appreciated.
Take care.